Good afternoon. Welcome to Cool Springs. Today is Wednesday, October the 29th, 2025, and this is our series, God Conversations, and our God Conversation title today is Looking in the Rearview Mirror. Part of the reason that I chose this topic, and I mentioned it in one of our earlier podcasts called Life Lessons, is because this past weekend I made a long trip from here in southern Alabama up to Atlanta, Georgia, and then back all in one day. So I spent about 9 or 10 hours in between going up and then returning, driving in my car by myself. And I had a lot of opportunity to look in the rearview mirror and look in the side mirrors. My reason for going to Atlanta was because this Saturday was my high school class's 50th reunion, and I've got the tag where they took our senior pictures from our photo albums and they made our name badges so we could recognize each other, because the girls mostly have different last names. When we were in high school, we had our birth name, but in the intervening 50 years we've had marriages, and so we have different last names, and we needed to be able to have our classmates recognize us. So sure enough, on my little badge there, it's got my first name, my maiden name in parentheses, and then my current married name down below it. Another thing that those pictures did for us was we got to look at hairstyles. I graduated high school in 1975. In 1975, boys had long hair, just like the girls did. But it's not 1975 anymore, it's 2025. And so at the reunion, you could see some of the faces and kind of look around and realize, hey, I sort of recognize you. You kind of, I can see young you in this now 68-year-old faces that are coming into our reunion venue site. But in 1975, all the boys had long hair. Well, at the reunion on Saturday, some of the guys had gray hair. Some of the guys had like hair receding or maybe missing on top but on the sides, or maybe a bald spot. And some of them had no hair whatsoever. But even in their changing hair, no hair heads, and the wrinkles and the graying, we could still see the resemblance of the younger people that we remembered. And part of our time at the reunion, we spent a little bit of time thinking back on favorite teachers and favorite high school memories and events that were important to us at the time. But mostly what we spent our time on was catching up on where'd life take you after high school. And so we were sharing a lot of stories about what decisions we made on whether or not to just begin a career, go to college, join the military, get married, whatever the life situation was. In fact, our class president married a young man from our high school, but he was a couple of classes ahead of ours. And she and her husband got married within a year of our graduating high school. So we're all there celebrating our 50th high school reunion this year. But next year, Judy and Paul are going to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. In my parents' and grandparents' generation, it wasn't uncommon for people to have marriages that lasted 40, 50, 60 plus years. But in the 1970s and beyond, a lot of times when people got married very young, the marriages didn't survive very long. And so it's extremely rare to have somebody from our generation who's already celebrating a major milestone anniversary, but yet Judy and Paul are going to have that opportunity, Lord willing, health and that kind of stuff, next year. And the rest of us could rejoice with them over that fact. But we also had a place on the wall because we all got these name badges to help us identify and remember each other. But some of our classmates aren't still alive. Some of them were gone thanks to accidents and disease and just, life things that happen even before the 10th anniversary, let alone the 50th. And during the course of the reunion time, each of us made our way over to the memory wall that the party planners had put up, showing the pictures of some of our classmates who 50 years ago, when we're getting ready to graduate and we're taking pictures and celebrating, holding up our diplomas and this kind of stuff, it didn't occur to 17 and 18-year-old us that chances were very high that we would all never ever be in the same place again. And sure enough, over the years, some people are still alive, but they don't live where they can come back for a reunion. Or maybe they have other obligations with family and health issues that would prohibit them from coming. But those of us who did make it to the reunion wanted to remember the ones that we couldn't have imagined 50 years ago wouldn't even still be alive to make it to a 50th reunion. And so we were honoring their memory and sharing stories about them as well. What were we doing? From the standpoint of reflecting on life, we were looking in the rearview mirror. We were remembering the hairstyles and the clothing styles and the rival high school that we always met in sports competitions and the proms and all that life has done in between, looking in the rearview mirror. But we also had a chance to catch up on what's going on in our lives since then and what's going on in our lives now. Because it's our 50th reunion, we're all 67 to 68 years of age. Some of us, like me, have retired from our occupations. A few of us in our class group are still working. Some of them are working for other companies. Some of them own their own businesses, and they're not retiring because they're doing what they love to do. They've built their own business, and that's how they're enjoying life. When we're driving down the road, sometimes we have to be very, very alert to changes in road conditions. Sometimes we have to look out for other drivers. Sometimes weather may impact whether or not we can drive the speed limit, or do we need to slow down because it's pouring down rain, or it may be cold weather and snow and we have to be careful. This reunion was at a place that was very familiar to me. It wasn't at our actual high school. It was at an event venue, a restaurant that has lots of party rooms for private events. But it's near where, for the first part of my adult working career, I used to work near there, and sometimes our office would have office events over at this restaurant. I'm stunned that this restaurant is still in existence from 50 years ago, but it is. And so when I was getting ready to come to the reunion, I chose to drive my husband's car because it's got the navigation system in there. But I'm thinking, okay, the navigation system's a backup. I know these roads. For years, I've traveled them. But sure enough, in the last 50 years, there's been lots of lane changes and lots of traffic signal changes, and sometimes street names changed. And so I was actually having to rely a little bit on that navigation system to help me find roads where I used to be able to make a right turn here, but now I can't do that anymore. Now I have to go further up and take some sort of a ramp to get off and double back. That kind of thing. When you're driving down the road, if all you had was the windshield to look forward, you could actually be in a lot of danger, because you're not necessarily seeing what's happening on either side of you if there are multiple lanes. And you might sometimes need to look in the rearview mirror to see if someone's coming up on you, or whatever might be the condition of the day. Maybe there's a weather system moving in. You need to look forward mostly, but you also need to occasionally look in the rearview mirror. And so this could be one of those conversations you have with your family, whether your kids are getting to be old enough to drive or not, because that was one of the things that came up in the reunion. Some people remembered our high school's driver's ed instructor and what it was like taking driver's ed under that particular person's leadership, and who we were partnered up with to learn how to drive cars. And some of us were talking about, boy, the traffic in Atlanta was bad when we were teenagers, and now we can't come up with enough awful words to describe the traffic that's there now. In fact, when it was time for me to leave the reunion, I deliberately chose to leave about a half an hour before the party ended, because I'm having to make the 4.5 hour drive back down here to Alabama. And I was kind of touched that some of the people sitting at the dinner table with me were like, you're leaving now and you're going to drive back tonight? Why don't you just stay in the hotel like some of them were doing? Some of them were concerned about whether or not I could see well enough at night. And yeah, I still can, but obviously some of my classmates are to the point where night driving is not what they want to do anymore. And I'm a bit of a night owl. I would rather go ahead and drive at night and be ready to do the next day than to stay in a hotel. Once I get past the airport, then it's just interstate all the way down until about 30 miles from home, and then I have major highways I can take. I needed to look in the rearview mirror while driving. I needed to look in the side mirrors, but I mostly needed to look forward. And part of what we did at that reunion was look back, look at the present, but we were also looking forward to the future. Some of us exchanged business cards, or we exchanged phone information. We got details on how to hook up with each other on social media. And we're already starting, the reunion was Saturday, and as recently as Monday night, people were starting to share on social media pictures of the party. Looking back, but also looking ahead, because now that we're connecting up on social media, we'll be able to share what's going on now and what we're looking forward to in the future. So you can have your God conversations with your kids, whether they're ready to start to learn how to drive, or whether driving's a few years away, or whether maybe the day will come when mom or dad may need their adult son or daughter or their spouses to come and drive them to doctor's appointments at the grocery store. Because after all, if we hang around long enough, we're going to get to the point where instead of yelling at the little old man or lady driving down the road, we realize, oh my goodness, that's me now. And you can talk about the fact that the day may come when I may need help getting to church or doctor's appointments or the grocery store, and how important it is to take care of family and friends. So you can turn anything into a conversation that lets them know what God wants for our lives, for us to remember the past, to learn from the mistakes, to celebrate the fun times, to focus on the present and how we can love and care for each other, but also to look forward to the future, whatever it may hold, trusting that God's got us safely in the palm of His hands. Thanks for watching.